Okay, I think that's enough time. If you want, Ms. Rocio Perez, you can mute your mic and you can begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Catalina Castillo, and I'm here representing our San Bernardino Valley College SCTA Club. And today we have our guest speaker, Ms. Rocio Perez, who will be doing a presentation about COVID learning or teaching during this pandemic.
Let's see. Okay, welcome future teachers. My name is Rocio Perez. I am an RSP teacher and I work at Rialto Unified School District. Thank you to all of you for this invite. I hope that before you leave tonight, you take away something from this workshop. So let's start. So some of the topics that I'm considered to talk about with you tonight is about teaching credential, steps to become a substitute teacher, the tests that you need to take, such as the RICA, the CBS, and the CSET. And also, I plan to talk about the pros and cons of distance learning. So I'm going to start with the teaching credentials. So regarding teaching credentials, there are two types of credentials. One of them are the general education credential, and the other ones, the special education credentials, which can be in the mild, moderate, and you can work as a specialized academic instructor or in a SDC center. And also you have the options to work with kids who their disabilities are moderate and severe. Any question about it? Okay, so let me continue. So continue with teaching credential. Once you pass your CBS and your CSET and some credential classes, you can apply for an internship, and that way you can start working as a teacher. After that, you have the preliminary credentials, which are good for 5 years. And during these 5 years, you have to clear your credentials. And after that, you are in provision 1 and provision 2, which means that during this time, you have to be evaluated by an administrator. Next, I'm going to talk about the steps to become a substitute teacher. So once you get your bachelor degree, you can take the CBS test, which technically is a test that includes reading, writing, and math. And after that, you can start working as a substitute teacher, which is something that I highly encourage you, since it helps you to gain experience in the educational field. Continue with the different types of tests. We have the RICA, the CBS, and the CSET. So the RICA is made, let me move here. In the RICA, technically it consists of a case study, a short essay, and multiple choice questions. I highly recommend you to focus on the multiple choice question because it is 50% of the score of the test. There are many people who focus on the case study, but it is time consuming to be working on the case study. And if I'm not wrong, it's only 20% of your grade. And regarding the CBS, as I mentioned before, it only considers reading, writing, and math, and it's just basic topics. Let's see if I can. Okay, let me start presenting. Let's see, I can go to my next slide. Let me start. See what's going on. Okay. So it seems that I was logged in from my Google Slides. Let me try to log in again.
No worries.
Okay. So now let's continue with distance learning. Each school district has decided to use different apps. For example, in my school district, we are using Google. We are taking advantage of Google Calendar, Google Meets, Google Drive in order to be working on distance learning with our students. However, I know that other school districts are using Zoom. Let's see if I can move to the next one here. Okay, so one of the pros of distance learning is that students are excited because right now they enjoy to spend long periods of time in front of the computer, an iPad, any device. However, it has many cons. For example, we can see that there are many parents who are frustrated because right now they just not have to work outside their homes, but they also have to work in their own homes. And moreover, they have to support their kids. Also, many kids are frustrated, mainly the young ones, because they do not have the necessary skill to use a computer. Additionally, teachers also are stressed. Why? For different reasons, but one of them is because there is a lot of programs that we can take advantage of, and it takes us a lot of time to be familiar with any specific program. So it requires to have a lot of training on technology. Let's move to this one. Also another, I'm going to start here with cons, is that right now it's mandated by the governor that teachers have to record our lesson. So which results a little bit more stressful because now all the parents, everybody can see the way that we are teaching, if we make mistakes. But however, the pros of these cons, I can say that after we record ourselves, we can go over and we can reflect on our errors or mistakes, and based on that, we can improve our teaching. Not too bad. Okay. So continue with the pros and cons. In a traditional school model, normally it used to took me 12 hours a day to work planning lesson, teaching, and writing IEPs. Right now, it's more than 12 hours. So technically, I can say that I'm working double during distance learning. I'm working more hours every day. In fact, at the beginning of the school year, I was working 7 days a week. Also, regarding classroom management, so it is hard for teachers to manage the class since the students are in their houses and it's difficult. I have had a experience with one student that even though his parent is next to him, and I said, oh, can you please have a seat, look at it. I try to do something to grab his attention. He's out of his seat. He's in and out. Also, he's putting his camera off. So that's why I can say that it's very difficult to manage the classroom right now. And also, I want to share with you something that I have found out mainly at the elementary level is that some parents are doing their children's homework. So as teacher, we cannot rely on what our students are tuning in because we don't know if they really did it or they received the support from their parents. However, one of the benefits of distance learning is that now families have more family time. So, so far I have shared with you the different pros and cons of become a teacher. However, I highly encourage you to pursue your dreams. So no matter what, if you are a great teacher, if you have the passion to change children's life, go for it because I can tell you that it's worth it. Just like when you see that after a while, you can see progress on your students. That's what makes me happy, and that's why I am a teacher. So that's why I highly encourage you to continue and pursue your dreams. So I don't know if anybody has a question. Let me stop sharing my screen.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
What did you find most hard on the testing? Like, do you recommend taking one before the other, or is there like an order in which you have to take the test?
No, you can take it in any order. However, I started with the CBS first.
Okay.
And I have to admit that I have to take it like 3 or 4 times, the CBS. One thing is that English is my second language. However, regarding the CSET and the RICAM, I had the blessing of passing all of them at the first try.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you can take any one, but once you have your bachelor's degree, you can take your CBS, and once you pass it, you can apply for your emergency credential. That way you can start subbing.
Oh,
and
okay.
Regarding the CSET, it's made up of 3 subtests, so you can take it one subtest at a time. That's the way that I did it. One covers math and science, the other one child development, physical education, and visual and performance arts, and the other one English language art.
Okay.
And regarding the RICA, so you need to, you have a case study, you have short essays, two short essays and multiple choice questions. So what I did and worked for me is focus on the multiple choice because this is 50% of your score. So, and I know that there are many people who focus on the case study, but the case study is just 20%.
Yeah, and there's a time limit on each test?
Yes, and that's what happens. Since the case study is time consuming, then when you realize you don't have enough time to complete the whole test.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Yes. Any other question?
Yes, thank you, Rocio, for sharing your experience. I had a question. How do you practice self-care, especially now during COVID?
Well, good question, and I'm glad that you asked that. Something that I'm doing is exercise. So before I start my day, I take a walk, a 1 hour walk, or sometimes I run for 15, 20 minutes, and I have noticed that that helped me a lot. Yeah, because honestly, once I have a seat here in front of the computer, I just start around 7:30. Well, officially, because sometimes I have to wake up at 5 a.m. because I have something pending to complete. Mainly because I am in the special education area. But after that, all the way to 4 p.m. And later on in the night, I continue for another 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, but self-care is very important right now.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
And in fact, let me add something. Right now, I'm in the master program, and one of my classes is self-care included. So I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about coherent breathing right now, and that's something that I practice in as well during nights.
Thank you so much for that. I have a question. What has been the biggest struggle changing from being on site to teaching online as an RSP teacher?
Assessing students. I can say that assessing a student is one of the most difficulties because I like to assess my students face to face because that way I can observe the students, I can take my notes. And right now, I assessing the students, but virtually. And I have experienced, or I have noticed that some students are cheating. And I could see on the light on their faces, that means that they are moving from one tab to another tab. So, but that's the way that, that's the only way that I can rely on assessments. Yeah, because in fact, in our school district, they use iReady. And the special education department recommends to consider the iReady scores as evidence in our IEPs. However, something that I think, well, I was not with the student when they were taking the test, so I don't know how reliable it is going to be. So that's why I prefer to include informal assessment, but doing face-to-face, or the way that I can be seeing the student's face.
Thank you so much for your answer. Are there any other questions that you might have for Ms. Perez? Okay, I have a follow-up question. Since you find it difficult to do assessments, does it seem like there's less students being assessed during the pandemic?
No. Students who are referred for initial assessment, right now they are being assessed. However, it is virtually, and right now the one who is in charge of the formative and formal assessment are the psychologists. Normally, in traditional school model, the psychologists do the psychoeducational assessment, and special education teachers do the academic assessment. But right now, the psychologists are doing all the assessment. But we need to accept that we are a little bit behind, because since the school was closed last March, and there were several students who were being assessed. So that process stopped, and just at the beginning of this school year, we continue with the evaluation. But we are a little behind.
Yeah, that's normal because of the situation.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give a student like us, or like, let's say tomorrow I become a teacher and I'm having to come into teaching during this distance learning type of teaching? What's the best advice we can get as new teachers?
Get familiar with technology. Yes, I honestly, I have to admit that I'm glad that my university, I took a technology class for one semester. It was not enough time. However, I can tell you that I learned the basic, and I'm glad that my school district is using the same type of technology that I learned at the university. Yeah, otherwise it will be very difficult. Because right now we are getting training, but what is happening right now, every time that the school district has access or buy drives to use any specific tools, they wanted to learn about it. They want to provide us training. So however, we are just getting familiar with one tool when we know about something else. And that's difficult. That's difficult because we are teaching the students to be familiar with a specific tool. For example, one of the tools that we use a lot is Jamboard, because that's very interactive. And it's difficult if the kids already know how to use it, and 2 or 3 weeks later, I cannot tell them, you know, now we are going to be using this tool. So because instead of having progress, I'm gonna be spending more time on teaching students how to use these tools. Yeah, but definitely the school districts, they are providing training of technology, but as I mentioned before, I have to admit that thanks that I took a technology class, that way it has been a little bit easier for me.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry. Did you ever teach a general education class, or was it always just special ed as a sub, or experienced both areas?
Yes, I had the opportunity to have long-term in a middle school in Fontana for 3 or 4 months. And there is a difference between middle school and elementary school, but also there is a difference in the way of teaching. Because in the general education setting, you can spend maybe 2-3 weeks on a unit. However, in the special education setting, if this is SDC, you have to be working on the student's goal for a whole year, or if it is an SDC setting, you have to be focused on the student's goal. Yeah, but there is a huge difference regarding curriculum.
Okay, and do you still prefer elementary over middle school, or? are both of them okay?
I preferred elementary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So at the beginning, I thought that I was going to be teaching in high school. I never thought that I was going to be working in a middle school. So, however, I consider that a great experience because based on that, I could decide that I wanted to be in elementary school.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question. What was it that inspired you to work in the special education setting?
I started my career in the educational area as a substitute teacher. I mean, as a teacher aide. And I started in the special education. So since I was a child, I said, well, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm gonna be a teacher because I come from a family from teachers. My mom is a teacher. My sister is a teacher in Mexico. So I am the first teacher here in the United States from my family. And I always said, I'm gonna be a teacher. But when I started working as a teacher aide, in a special education classroom in a SDC setting. So that's when I decided that I was going to go for a special education because it's so excited. And I still can remember the student when I was teaching her how to do addition. And she was able to learn. And I said, you know, I think that these are the kids who need more of my service. That's why I decided to go to a special education. And also in a middle school, I was a permanent teacher in a special education in a SDC class. And that helped me to convince myself that that was what I wanted.
Thank you so much for that. I see that we have a question in the chat. This is a question by Odalis Garcia. What do you enjoy the most while teaching? And how many years of school did you do before becoming a teacher?
Let's start with the first part of the question. The most I enjoy is that I can see progress on my students. So that's something that I most enjoy, to be teaching them and seeing that after 2-3 weeks, I can see their progress. And in order to be a teacher, so you have to have your bachelor's degree. After that, going for the credential programs, either in gen ed or special education. It took me 2 years to complete my credential programs in the mild to moderate. And I think for general education is less time, maybe maybe it took me 4 semesters, maybe 3 semesters for the general education credential programs. And something that I didn't do because I was scared, however, let me share with you that once you have your bachelor, your CBS and your CSET, you can apply for an internship. You don't have to have the RICA to be an intern teacher. So then that way you can start gaining experience as a teacher, and at the same time, you are continuing with your credential program. And what I did, because I was scared, I listened many stories that told me, oh, Rocio, you know, I have taken so many times the RICA and I haven't passed. I have taken the CSET so many times and I haven't passed. And I said, well, I think it's gonna be more difficult for me because of my, because I am an ESL student. But however, no. But something that I highly recommend you is not just to rely on one specific book. Like, for example, when I was going to take the RICA, that was last December, during the Thanksgiving week, I read a whole book about how to teach to read. So that was one thing. Also, I bought other books for the RICA, but I was using several books. I didn't realize using one book, but at the end, I can tell you that in the RICA, I came with my own strategies. I didn't get, I didn't include in the RICA the reading strategies that I learned in the school. I just something that came to my mind. Okay, this is the way I will be teaching my students to read.
Thank you for that. Anyone else has any more questions? I do want to remind you, if you don't feel comfortable opening up your mic to ask questions, you could always write them in the chat and we can read them out for Ms. Perez. While we wait for others to come up with questions, I'm just wondering, Ms. Perez, does the current situation discourage you from continuing in your profession as a teacher? Or like, how do you feel about this right now?
No, I think that what we are experiencing right now can be the hardest part of the teaching side. In fact, one of my colleagues told me, Ms. Perez, you are being tested by fire because this is your second year. And now see what we have. So in distance learning, I can tell you that no matter how many years of experience you had as a teacher, so this is something new for everybody. But I can tell you, don't be scared. The only thing that you need, the only thing that you need to do is just be prepared. So be prepared, be creative. Because let me tell you that something that I found out is that as a teacher, many times you have to improvise. Sometimes you have your lesson plans, but something happened and then you have to do something else. But always let's try to be creative and have something that's going to benefit the students.
What are some of those creative ways you've been able to reach students during this time? Can you give us an example?
Yes, like for example, we are working on side works. Since we work in elementary school, we have some students who are still working on their side work and say, you know, you are going to create kind of flashcard, but we are using Jamboard. If you have to learn the side word went, okay, I want you to type the word 3 times, say the word at the same time that you are typing it, and I want you to add a picture of a place that you went. So that way help the students to remember the side word, because the side word have to be, they have to be memorized. Yeah, also, yes, I have a student who is working on his multiplication tables number 2, and something that I'm doing with him, because sometimes he has a lot of time of service in RSP, and something that I notice that sometimes he gets bored. And I start playing with him. And I start acting as if I were a child too, and say, you know, I'm going to ask you some multiplication table now. You are going to ask me, and what I do, I say, well, I don't know that answer, or on purpose, I give to the students the wrong answer. So, but why? Because I want that he found out if I am right or am I wrong.
Thank you for that. Another question, in a regular setting, it's my understanding as an RSP teacher, maybe sometimes students would go over to the RSP. How are you handling that during the distance learning teaching online? How is the Ms. Perez RSP teacher coming over to help out the students?
Okay, so here is one thing. The administrators decide if the RSP service is gonna be a pull out or push in. Pull out means that I pull out the students from their classroom, and push in means that I go to the students' general education settings and I work with the teacher, or what some people call co-teaching, but co-teaching is a broad term which can be performed at different models. But in my case, we do pull out 95% with 95% of my students. And what I do right now, since the students have to be, well, we know that from kinder to third grade, they have to have 200 and or first grade, or first to third grade, they have to have 230 minutes, and for fourth grade and up, 240 minutes of daily instruction. So the students who have an IP, who are in RSP, they have to attend that minutes plus the minutes of service that they have with me. So what I did, because I agree and I believe that every time a student is pulled out from their class, they miss instruction from the general education class. So what I did, I tried to schedule my students at the time that they are not in live instruction with the general education teacher. And this is something that took me a while to figure out the schedule in order to make sure they don't miss their general education instruction.
Thank you. In the case of students that are more severe, how is that working for you guys? I mean, I know that I've heard stories from parents that are that have their kids in school, and teacher is requesting for students to be on online class at a certain time, but there's students with severe needs, students that might take medicine, students that for whatever the reason are not able to make it to class at their designated time. So how is the district or schools, how are they making up for that lost time if the student can't make it to class on time?
Okay, here is the thing. It's mandatory to that the school district offers certain amount of minutes to each student. However, it's up to the parents if the students are late, if the students don't show up. But in my work site, the administrator requests to the general education teachers to take attendance at 9:30, at 2:30 p.m. and between 9 and 10 p.m. Why? Because if there are some children who, for any reason, they were not able to attend the class, so since the class are recorded, they can log in, they can watch the class, complete their assignment, and that way they can have attendance. Why? Because we know who log in and who doesn't log in.
Thank you for that. What about students that had under IEPs on one-on-one? How is that being handled? Is that something that happens online, or is it being considered where the one-on-one comes to the home and helps out? Like, what can you tell us about that?
Okay, so I have 4 students who have a one-to-one. And right now, all the teacher aides are attending their homes. That way they are supporting their students, and that's something that I think that's great, because last week, there was one student who last week started receiving his teacher aide in his home, which is very helpful, because in fact, that student had been in my class only 3 times since the beginning of the school year. But now that he has his teacher aide, so we can presume that he's gonna be showing up every day in class. But they are getting their support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
During the distance learning, as a teacher or RSP teacher, are you guys having to modify the curriculum for the students during this time? Like if before you were able to have the student have 10 questions, now because of the situation or maybe the reduced amount of time, are you doing 5 instead of the 10 usual? Or what are the things that have changed when it comes to the curriculum?
Okay, so shorten an assignment, that's an accommodation, but that accommodation has to be included in the student's IEP. And the one who performs that accommodation is the general education teacher. So as a RSP teacher, if I see that there is a need for the student to shorten their assignment, so instead of having to answer 10 questions in his or her test, the student has only to complete half or 3/4 of the test, but it has to be written. It has to be written, and the IP and the general education teacher has to make sure that that accommodation is accomplished.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Earlier you were asked what you were doing, you know, to relax and, you know, distress yourself. How do you feel your students are doing? Do you feel like they're taking the time to distress themselves, or do you see a change in, you know, the way they interact with you, or just anything in general? Like, you know, how is this affecting them? When you see them, what do you feel they're going through?
Well, the first thing that I have noticed in my students, the need to interact with their classmates. So that's why I'm trying to do small groups, so that way students have the opportunity to interact. In fact, there are some occasions that I say, okay, I'm good. Well, at the beginning of every single session, I said, okay, guys, I'm gonna give you 1 minute to each one of you to share something with the class. That's one thing. But there are some times that there are students, oh, Miss Perez, look what I got, look what I bought, this is what I have. And I say, you know, this is not time for sharing. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes at the end of the class, but now it's time to work. But yes, definitely I can see the children's need of interacting with other kids. And some activities that I have been doing with them is dancing. I have some kids who like to dance, but there are other ones that say, no, I'm gonna be seated. Also, I offer breaks to the students every 15-20 minutes. Even though there are some students who refuse to have a break, say, no, I want to continue here. But I say, you know, go to get water, go to use the restroom, get up, you need to do something. Because something that I know is that the attention span for everybody is maximum 20 minutes, but for kids it's 15 minutes. So after that time, we need to do something different. So, and every time that we get up, our brain gets oxygen, and after that, that helps us to be more focused and learn more.
Thank you. I just want to remind you guys, again, you guys are welcome to unmute your mics and ask any questions you might have, or you can write them in the chat.
What made you want to become a teacher, Ms. Perez?
Well, since I was a child, I used to play to be the teacher. I said, oh, I pretended that I was the teacher. And I remember that with my cousin, everybody wanted to be the teacher. Everybody wanted to be the leader. So, but I remember I said, well, I want to be a teacher. That since I was a child. Later on, I decided to be a teacher since I am an immigrant. My kids are born here. And I said, I think that I need to be prepared to support my kids. That was another reason. And later on, I said, you know, I think I can go beyond. I can help other kids besides my own kids.
Yeah.
Thank you. What do you think are good qualities that a teacher should have?
First thing, patience. A teacher has to be patient because I can tell you kids do not have the same maturity as an adult. Sometimes they can do something according to their cognitive level. So I will say that patience, creativity, taking risk in class, say, okay, I'm gonna do something different. Also responsible. Being responsible is very important. And I think this is kind of a chain because if you are not responsible, you are going to have more stress. So however, if you are responsible, stress can decrease because let me share with you that as a teacher, you have to be a teacher, you have to be a second parent for the students, you have to be a psychologist because you have to listen to the students. You have to find out ways that you can support not just the students, but also their parents as well. Like right now, I'm working in my induction program. I'm working in being more familiar on resources available for parents because I had found out that I had parents with kids with with any disabilities, and they don't know what the disability is. They just know that their kids have a disability, but they don't know if this is a specific learning disability, ADHD, autism. They don't know. Like I said, I'm working on that project, and I sent a survey to the parent and say, okay, what is your child disability? Let me start for that. And there were some parents who told me, oh, my child disability is reading, but it's not reading exactly the child disabilities. So that's why it's very important to support parents. And as a teacher, you have to offer extra support to parents. Like right now, administrators had told us to all the teachers, if you find out that there is a family in need of food, of shelter, please let us know. That way we can reach that family and offer support. Because right now, because of this pandemic, we know that many people has lost their jobs, and there is a lot of things going on, so it's very difficult.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that you have parents that sometimes don't really understand their students' needs or their diagnosis, I guess. What do you think is the biggest obstacle when it comes to reaching out to parents and making them understand or providing them with the right information?
So one thing that I consider a main factor is the language. In my case, most of my students come from immigrant parents. Some of them, they don't speak English. That's one barrier. Also is that in special education, there is a lot of technical terms. So, but that's why I make sure that every time that I write an IP and I abbreviate that term, or like, for example, one of them is FAPE, free and appropriate public education. So I make sure that I put the definition of that abbreviation in my IP. That way the parents know what I'm talking about.
Thank you. And during this specific time where we're in distance learning, what has been your experience reaching out to parents? Like, is it, I mean, I would hear that before it was kind of hard to get parents to, you know, because they have to work and all kinds of stuff, but how has the pandemic now, you know, affected that?
Well, so far I have communication with all my parents, even though I can tell you that there are some parents that it takes for them to respond to my messages 1 or 2 weeks, but however they respond. But I'm using Remind 101. That's the way to communicate with parents. I send them messages, and there are some parents who responded right away. But I just have one parent who is not in Remind, but however, I know that I can reach that parent to email. But definitely, reaching parents is a difficult task, not just in distance learning, but also in a traditional school.
Yes, I
And
agree.
in fact, there is something that I highly believe that it's very important is to be in communication with parents and not just make phone call to let the parents know, you know, your child is not following direction, your child did not complete your assignment, but also I have sent messages to my students' parents to tell them, okay, thank you. Your child last week had a great attendance, was on time. I missed your child last week. He was present just 2 out of 3 sessions. So that's very important to be in communication with parents. Because something that I have noticed is that parents respond to you, but also I recommend you to be nice and respectful with parents.
I agree. We need a lot of parent support and involvement when it comes to their students' education. It's often being said that, you know, it takes a village, and everyone needs to be part of that village in order to make, you know, a successful student. I also see a lot of hardworking teachers, and this is like more like a personal question. Like, how much money do you spend out of pocket, you know, on your students?
Well, right now, not too much, but in a traditional school, yes. I used to go to the store and I cannot leave the store without going to the school supplies and see what I can get for my kids. Yeah, but right now I can tell you no during distance learning. The school district is buying everything for us. But in a regular class, yes, I like to buy stuff for my kids. So even though sometimes I don't have time to use all what I buy, but I want to have it there and have it ready because I know that one day I'm gonna use it.
Well, I'm glad that you're not spending your money right now. But as a parent, I've known, you know, a lot of good teachers that spend their own money, you know, in order to help out students. And I mean, I would do that too. If I was able to, yeah, I would do that as well. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
What other questions are out there? I don't see anything in the chat right now, but again, if you guys have any questions, you guys can unmute your mic. Go ahead and unmute your mic if you like, Odalis. Okay, I guess she wrote it in the chat. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. I always wondered, do teachers don't teach during summer, or like when there's no school, do they still get paid?
Okay, so let me explain you how it works. So as teacher, you sign a contract for 10 months. Okay, so they will tell you, okay, you are gonna get $50,000 and your contract is gonna be just 10 months. So do you want to receive your money in 10 months or in 12 months? So it's up to the teacher if she wants to have their money in 10 or 12 months. And regarding summer school, if you want to work during summer school, you can apply, but there is not a guarantee that you are going to be hired for that extra month. But in case that the school district calls you, then you get pay for that extra month. And you know, let me tell you, I'm glad that you answered that question because that's something that I didn't know. I didn't know until I was in the credential program. So I just wondered, well, what happened during the summer? Do the teachers get paid or did it get paid? But now I know how it works.
Do you have to, is it required for you to attend summer school if they ask, or is it just if you apply and they call you?
Yes, no, it's voluntary. It's only you want, you can sign up, but I think there are many people who sign up. I signed up last summer. I wasn't called.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I signed up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And in fact, there are also more extra assignment as teacher. Like 2-3 weeks ago, I received an invite to work in say teacher home school within the district, but I said I have a lot and I cannot make it.
Too much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. It's been about an hour now. If you guys have any last questions for our teacher, I know she needs to get back to, having a good night's sleep so she can be up and early, ready for the students tomorrow. I will post additional information in the chat for you guys. And again, if you guys have any last questions, this is the time to, break them out.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank Miss Rocio because I do work with her and I see how hard she works every day, like from sun up to sundown, literally. So thank you for coming and doing this for us and taking the time and creating a Google slides and everything. So I really appreciate you doing that.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
And you're a great teacher, and I mean, so you do a very good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Michelle. And also, so before ending, I would like to thank one of my mentor teacher who is attending this meeting. His name is Luis Bojon. He has been a mentor for me since I was in Chaffey College. He has guided me, and I can say that part of who I am is thanks to him, to his advices. So thank you, Professor Bojon. And just something that last night I said, I'm going to share with Ms. Bojon something that I'm going to be doing tomorrow. And I was so surprised because I know that he's very busy. He teaches at 2 different universities, and he's here. He told me, send me the link and I will try to make it. Thank you, Professor Bojon, and thank you for all you have done for me.
Thank you so much, everyone that was able to join us today. I want to thank Ms. Perez as well for being here with us. We did learn a lot. I'm glad that you're in the special education field. We need a lot of teachers like you out there. Our students need a lot of people like you. And I'm glad that you are sticking around and you're trying your best to do the distance learning because our students really need you.
Thank you.